terms of what I think is very important in terms of a good life or good quality life is a number of things. Firstly, it's about social relations. It's about how we look after each other. It's about how equalities are actually implemented, between different groups of the population, and it's about how resources are distributed amongst different groups of people as well. So I think that issue about social relations is really important. I think another important aspect of a good life is about jobs, having jobs and employment, and having good quality employment with security, with pensions, and that there is proper training and workforce development in other words, training in the workplace, education in the workplace. So we make employment, yes, employment is about wages, but it's also make it a much more positive experience, and that there is good terms and conditions and good quality wages at the end. I think another key aspect of a welfare of a good quality life is the state of the welfare state, if you like. It's the range of public services that are provided, and by that I mean social security, both for in cases of unemployment, and for about pensions for the elderly. It's also about health, education, long-term care, childcare, and so on. It's about having fully funded or well-funded services that are open to all, universally provided, which are good quality, and which are under democratic control. So I think a welfare state plays a really important part in that. And I think related to that also are what I would call housing and community conditions, which is another really important aspect of good quality life. It's about having good quality housing that you don't have to pay extortionate costs for, which is different. It's got basic facilities like heat and light and water and so on. And I think what is also important is the facilities that surround that, what we would normally call community facilities, in terms of recreation, play space, sports and leisure activities are crucial. And I think a final dimension to all of that in terms of a good life is about culture, and it's about recognizing the cultural diversity of an area, but also the cultural history of an area in terms of art, in terms of theatre, and in terms of museums and all those kinds of things. So I think that is a cultural dimension to a good quality life is really important. I mean, in terms of what is happening, a lot of my work is really around the threat to those ideas, and what we see in my analysis is what we see in terms of what is happening to public services in the welfare state is basically what I've argued is about the financialisation of those services, how they're being marketised and privatised on a really quite large scale. And by that I mean not just in terms of the privatisation of large assets like telecoms and energy and etc., but in a very small and local way, the privatisation of public housing in Britain. If you look at privatisation of other assets, but also in much more subtle ways, there is a marketisation and privatisation of public services in schools, in hospitals, all those things which are really part of the really fundamental part of the welfare state are slowly being eroded and marketised and as I say, privatised. And we also see that in different forms, in the sense through what we call public-private partnerships, which have again, like privatisation, grew in Britain, and where, you know, there's now something like 900 public-private partnerships in Britain to do with schools and hospitals and so on. But you know, those public-private partnerships are spreading internationally across Europe, North America, South America, Australia, and other parts of Asia, just as the way the privatisation spread as well. And there's a third aspect to all of that, which is a major threat to that good life in a way, is that is what I was talking about yesterday in terms of a social investment market, where the international capital has decided that they could sell social bonds which would help to finance social projects, and those social projects would be, the investors would only get their money back if those social projects are successful. So in a sense, what finance capital is found another way of actually financializing services in a way in which normal standard privatization and normal marketization, you know, hasn't achieved. So I think that process which is going on is absolutely fundamental and a major threat to, you know, the quality of life on a global basis. I think another dimension to all of this, of course, is the impact of all of that on jobs and in terms of wages and conditions, and that's partly linked to do with privatization and marketization, but it's also to do with this idea that we have to have growth strategies. We have to, if the economy doesn't grow 4 and 5% a year, that's a calamity, or it's a disaster, which of course is not the case. And I think that's another whole area where we need to, in a sense, address the creation of jobs, creation of employment, but also you know, coming back to what I was saying before, good quality employment, but that's not necessarily linked to growth. And for example, a good example is the way in which we could address climate change. There was a group in Britain last year that what we did was to look at how we could create jobs. We weren't talking about growth. What we were talking about was creating 1 million jobs by addressing climate change, by developing clean energy, by developing renewable energy to reduce emissions, and to adapt the infrastructure in terms of housing and public buildings so that it was better equipped to deal with climate change. Then you could argue that some of that is about growth, but it's not. It's about adaptability, and it's about addressing major global issue so that you know, that to the much broader benefit.